So when Chad talks to you after I finish, and he's telling you and describing about his brain injury and what he deals with and what things are like, you'll understand what happened to him. You guys know where your brain is stored. Free floats around it in your skull area, what we call cerebral spinal fluid. If you have ever broken, twisted, sprained your ankle, smashed or broke your hand or finger, because of that injury, there is swelling that takes place. When a person injures their brain, it's a severe enough injury, it's going to cause your brain to swell also. The problem is, because your brain's inside the skull bone, there's no room for that swelling. An injury can either be fatal or leave you with a lot of permanent serious damage if you even survive it. Chad's injury happened a mile from the trauma center in Columbia. He was hit head-on by a drunk driver going 35 miles an hour. He was en route to the trauma center. I told you 1 mile away, and he died 3 times on the way there. I know this because my husband's a firefighter, and his best friend was the medic that was reviving him in the back of the ambulance when that happened. The swelling on Chad's brain was so severe, they had to surgically go in and they removed a portion of his skull bone. This is common. This is a common practice for injuries like that. During this phase of a person's injury, they're typically what we call in a comatose state. You guys heard the word coma before. When a person's comatose, this means that they're in a very deep sleep. They're basically unconscious, hooked up to a lot of tubes and machines that's doing everything for them. And the longer that a person's comatose, the greater degree of disability, loss of function throughout their whole body, they and their family members are going to have to deal with if they even survive the injury at all. Someone could be in a coma for a few days. Chad was in a coma for 6 weeks. That's a month and a half. It's a long time. And when he started waking up from his coma, it was a blank stare for several days. Chad, when he woke up, couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, he was fed through a tube, he had no memory. He didn't know his own family for, months. His mother, his 5 siblings, none of them. I actually met Chad the first day they moved into Rusk Rehab in Columbia. He was inpatient rehab for almost a full year, relearning what you guys wake up and take for granted. After that first year, his speech was better. He couldn't walk still. That therapy continued for the next 3.5 to 4 years. He walked into your school this morning. Yes, he's got a pretty significant limp. His gait is impaired, but he did it. When he speaks to you, you will understand him. He articulates well enough that you're going to understand what he says. I'm pointing those out because he had to learn all of that over again from scratch. 17 years old. From day one up to that point, he relearned it and he was able to. Not everybody recovers that well with an injury like this. Warren Thompson, oh, my PowerPoint went off. When did that go out? Uh-oh, who did it? It may have a bad mold or something, I don't know. Sleep mode, maybe hot. Well, without the PowerPoint, I may have to look at the screen and you guys may just have to picture your head. Warren Thompson. When I was talking about, and thank you guys. I mentioned about Chad being in the coma for a month and a half. This is Warren Thompson. That's his mother. Usually they're in red sweatshirts, but this slide's showing you blue. Warren and his family are from the St. Louis area. Warren was involved in a crash in which he was 20 years old when the crash happened. Young man driving the evening of their crash was impaired. Drugs and alcohol in his system. They crashed less than a mile from Warren's home. Warren, the impact of the crash, had crushed him in the floorboard where your feet go. He had a lot of injuries. The damage to his brain left him comatose for 3 months. That's a long time. It's double what Chad's was. He woke up from his coma on Mother's Day, which is the second Sunday in May. That injury to him left him blind, paralyzed throughout his whole body, which means he can't move any part of his body. He lost the ability to speak. An injury like Warren's we describe being locked in because he's in there. What I mean by that is he could always hear what you say and he would understand you. But he had no way of communicating back other than blinking his eyes, 1 for yes and 2 for no. That caption above their photo, in case you can't read it, it says, don't just think about yourself. Think about what this would do to your family. That's from his mother. They used to do a lot of these presentations with us. In the last couple of years, Warren's injury, in case you think it can't get any worse, he was completely bedridden. So yeah, it got a little bit worse. Her message to you is to make good choices in your life. Every day, there's not one of us in here that don't get up and have choices to make because we all do. Some of those choices, they're not going to have good outcomes. You guys know right from wrong. You know good and bad. You know the difference. You know this. She wants you to understand the consequences of making those poor ones. This family lost everything after Warren's crash. They lost their home. She lost her job. Because injuries like him require around-the-clock care, you can't leave him alone. There was no way she was going to put her son in a nursing home and depend on the state to take care of him. So in order for her to be by his side, because like I said, he can't be left alone, she let everything go in her life. Her, Warren's younger brother, took care of him for 22 years. Last month, Labor Day weekend, I got a phone call from her. She called me that Saturday morning and said, Penny, I just wanted to let you know you've been so kind to us over the years. Warren passed away this morning after 22 years of living with his injury. I asked her, I said, you know, when you get arrangements made for his service, can you let me know I would like to attend or send something? Well, a week went by, week and a half, and I'm like, I never heard from her. I went online and I started Googling for his obituary. Nothing. I told my husband, I said, God, I hate to call her. Or definitely, I don't want to send a text. That's tacky. So I called her. Debbie, did I miss Warren's service? She said, no. Penny, I went to put something together, and Chris and I, which is Warren's younger brother, so we got to talking, and she goes, there's nobody to attend. These injuries can be very lonely. Life goes on after you get injured with a severe injury, especially like Warren's. People go on around you. He lost his friends, and he was very popular. He was well-liked, well-loved. She was like, everyone's moved on in their life. There's no one still around. So we just did our own little thing in Warren's bedroom. And I thought that was really sad. Then I teamed up with another one of our speakers this past Monday. There's a high quadriplegic. And one of the students in the audience asked her, what's the hardest part of your injury? Well, now, the person that was speaking with us on Monday, this is someone whose injury was so high she can't feed herself, she can't dress herself or bathe herself. And the hardest thing, even though she relies on people to do that for her, it's ironic because here I've just told you how lonely these injuries can be. And she answered that young man and said, it's the loneliness that goes with these injuries. You lose a lot of your friends. That to me is kind of sad. Injuries that affect your spinal cord. Now I'm going to talk to you about the parts of your body that can and will not work anymore. People who injure their spinal cord up in the neck region of their spine, you have 7 vertebrae up here. And injuries this high are going to be pretty devastating. We call them quadriplegia because the word quad means 4. And that means it's a high enough injury, it's going to affect the use and movement of all 4 of your main limbs. This is one of my speakers. This is Bob. His injury was so high, it took the use and movement of all of his both arms, hands, fingers, legs, bowel, bladder control is gone. You're going to go to the bathroom. Everybody does. But with a spinal cord injury, you're not going to know you've even gone. Your bowels can go, your bladder can empty. You'll know after the fact, and so will everyone around you. You just won't know you're doing it at the time. You could be sitting here in the middle of an assembly, a classroom, sleeping at night, riding in a vehicle. And your body, it's going to do whatever it feels like doing. Injuries like mine, this is my friend Jason. Our injuries are referred to as paraplegia. Para means 2, and that means we still have full use of our upper body. We're very strong. I thank God for that ability. Every day, thank God for that ability. Because of that, we can take care of ourselves, and for the most part, lead a pretty darn independent life, and there is so much to be said for that. Getting yourself up out of bed, bathing yourself, dressing yourself, feeding yourself. Those little things you take for granted, you don't realize how important they are until you're not able to do them for yourself. I'm fortunate. But our lower 2 limbs are affected with paralysis. That again, too, means we can't move or feel them. This kid, Jason's another one of my speakers in Columbia. He was about to approach his 16th birthday, and he begged his parents for a motorcycle. His mother was a registered nurse at the trauma center in Columbia, and she told him, we're not going to know. She worked in the intensive care unit. She goes, I've seen what happens. People who get in motorcycle wrecks, no way. Well, he kept begging, that's all I want. I'm not driving a car, I don't want a car, I want a bike. They caved right before his birthday, let him go pick up a motorcycle. This kid, I met him like I did Chad when he was in the hospital going through rehab after his crash. Leading up to that, this kid was one of those young men that try it once, if it's fun, I'm doing it again. He was a risk taker, and he'd tell you that. No one's going to tell me what to do. I'd get in their face and laugh if they did. The salesman picked up on his attitude when he went to pick out this new motorcycle. And he handed his mother a $750 red metallic helmet. And he goes, I can't let you leave this shop unless you buy this to go with it and make him wear it. Because, and I quote, we know what this kid is going to take that bike out and do. Well, they were right. Jason crashed that bike 2 weeks later. 2 weeks he owned that bike. Crashed it doing 120 miles an hour around a curve that was meant to be traveled at 35. Crashed into a concrete retaining wall. How he survived that is beyond me. Because I told him, there's something to be said about helmets and safety gear. That one obviously did its job because he survived the crash. And how he didn't end up with a head injury is beyond me. I told him, I said, you know, you had more than luck and a helmet on your side that day. And he goes, yes, I did. He ended up breaking his back in 3 places. He's paralyzed from the chest down with a spinal cord injury. I'm telling you about these injuries because you're in the #1 bracket to get them, and you're going to be there for a while. The leading cause, here today to focus on that topic. I call them car crashes because it's not that I don't think accidents happen. They can and they do. But 95% of these crashes that happen every day on our roads, it's driver error. Or choices that drivers have made behind the wheel. Alcohol and being impaired by drugs right there. 1/3 of all these crashes taking place as drivers impaired. Speeding and driving aggressively is #2. And the #1 is just not paying attention. Cell phones play a big part in this category. I can't encourage and emphasize enough. When you guys are driving, that's your #1 priority right there is to drive. And by doing so, that means keeping your eyes and mind on the road, keeping your hands on the wheel. That's your best way of avoiding the crash in the first place. There's no selfie. There's no text message. There's no Instagram, Snapchat. We were invited to be at a school. As a matter of fact, we did go to the school earlier this week. But it got postponed a month and a half. Because a few days before we were scheduled to be there, one of their seniors was killed in a car wreck. The driver was impaired, and they know this because the young man was Snapchatting and taking selfies and posting them minutes before that crash happened, and he lost his life, killed on impact. They postponed our presentation, and we did it this week, and oh my goodness, you could have heard a pin drop. It was a pretty emotional presentation for that student body, but they listened, and I hope it sticks with them. Airbags and seatbelts. This is actually how Chad was injured in the crash he was involved in. Thing about airbags and seatbelts, most all vehicles these days have airbags in them. Airbags deploy and activate anywhere from 110 to 220 mile an hour impact. That's significant. They can injure you and even be fatal to a small person or child who, again, always be belted every trip, every time. When you wear that seatbelt, wear it the right way. You take that strap, you put it behind your back or underneath your arm, it can't do the job it's designed to do. You stand a much greater chance of surviving and walking away from a crash when you're belted. And again, avoid one in the first place. Keep your eyes and mind on the road, your hands on the wheel. You guys know what your percentage is of being in a crash? Anybody want to take a guess? What is your percent of being involved in a crash? Somebody said 50. It's higher than 50. It's higher than 75. It's higher than 99. So what's higher than 99? What's higher than 99.9? 100. 100. So you realize what I'm telling you? It's not if you will be, it's when. Now, will it be major like ours? God, I hope not. That's why we're here. In case you've been in one, obviously, we're walking and doing well now. Keep in mind the average driver's involved in 7 approximately every 10 years. This photo of me was taken a long time ago, 2 weeks, not less than that, after that photo was taken for a yearbook. I was riding with a girlfriend of mine who had recently got her driver's license. She had picked me up from my house, peeled out of my driveway onto the blacktop that afternoon. I gotta be honest with you, at that point I was laughing because I thought that was funny. And a half a mile down the road, I found myself, I yelled at her to slow down. Ironically, it was a day a lot like today. It was kind of foggy, misty, it had rained a lot that morning, roads were still wet, and that blacktop was slick. Steam was still coming up from it. She rounded a curve going too fast, overcorrected, and we rolled off that blacktop into a field of cattle multiple times. I was ejected through the front windshield about the second time the car flipped. I remember going through it because I screamed. When that crash was over, I knew I wasn't getting up. I couldn't move. Long story short, I was airlifted to the trauma center in Columbia. I spent the rest of my junior year into that summer in that place. Let out of the hospital in time to start my senior year of high school. Not how I intended to go back. I did it. I went on to college after graduation. I am married. My daughter Emily is my life. She's not that little anymore. She's actually she's a junior in college. You know, when you guys are little, or when you were younger, you have preschool, kindergarten days. What do you want to be when you grow up? She had one. What she wanted to be when you grow up, and you dress like it. She dressed up in little scrubs, one of my name badges on from the hospital. She wanted to be a doctor. And all from that time up, she would say, when I get bigger, Mom, I'm going to fix injuries like your and Chad's. You know, at that time, they go, well, that's really cute. Oh, that's cute. That's sweet. You know what? She's a junior pre-med student now. She did her first internship this past summer, authored a book for a physician in neurology, which is a field that treats and works with injuries like mine and Chad's. So what was, at one point, you know, oh, that's cute, that's sweet, I hope you do. Oh, you know what? She very well might. Don't give up on your dreams, because here's what I thought, you know, we'll see. She's actually just very well going to do it. I've worked many years with this young man. He picked up of the folks that I've showed pictures of. The sad part about it is, unfortunately, I met them when they were going through their rehab phase, because my office happens to be in a rehab center now, and has been for 30 years. And I can tell you of the patients that come through there, a lot of them, especially in your age group, it's devastating. And if you can imagine, what if you had to wake up and you're facing injuries like what we have, and we're sitting in front of you, we've done well. It's a challenge. You're being told on a daily basis, you're never going to do this again, you're never going to do that again. I can tell you, those patients, it's depressing. You withdraw from things around you and people. You get bitter and angry. And then there's patients like Chad. And once he started regaining his speech, you can even be quiet. His patient room was a few doors down from my office. We became really good buddies.
She had candy and soda.
And I had candies. I had to give him stashes of candy. He'd come down my office. Wasn't supposed to have it. Chad is probably one of the funniest, most positive people I've met in my life, which is why we spend a lot of time together. He does a lot of these presentations because he's popular with your age group. He's just really cool and fun to hang out with. Would you please welcome my friend Chad? Can you talk with that on
All right, can y'all hear me? All right. The first picture I brought picture of me wrestling there, and that was my earliest childhood memory. I started wrestling when I was 7 years old. And I grew up in a small town. I like this one. It's gotten bigger since I left, though. But I grew up in Mexico, Missouri, which is about 35 minutes north of Columbia. And it was a small town. But I had some friends with pretty big personalities. Like one of my good friends was Tyler, the coach of the Cavaliers. He's got like 40 years. So, and I wouldn't touch him in basketball, but he wouldn't wrestle me either. I don't remember that match. The guy from Winsboro I wrestled against. But I was undefeated that year, so I know I won. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying. I was a good wrestler. I was team coach, captain, whatever team I was on. Undefeated years, won states, played some nationals, got hurt, and dropped out of nationals. Oh, after that, I wanted to go on and wrestle under Wes Roper, and he knew that was awesome to go.
I'm back here. Are you ready?
I wanted to wrestle under Wes Roper, and he was welcome to go. They got a good wrestling program. So 4 days after Christmas, my sophomore year, I was driving my red Cavalier and was killed by a drunk driver in the station wagon. When the wreck-out was in happen, I was leaving practice. It was 4 days after Christmas, so we still had wrestling practice. Our coach didn't want us to go home and eat a lot of food and gain too much weight. So we still had practice, and I was taking home two of my wrestling teammates in practice, my varsity wrestling. Manziel, my 119-pound wrestler, he was in the front passenger seat of my car, the red one, on the left. And he told me, I don't remember anything about that night, but he told me that night we stayed in practice an extra 2 hours doing drills. And when we left, we were hungry, we all weighed under, so we stopped by Taco Bell right there by the high school. We ended up running with some friends, so we stayed longer than we should have. We getting late. So Manziel said he put on his seatbelt. I think his one seatbelt said too loud, because he was able to really get me help. I couldn't move, I was stuck in the car and stopped breathing. And my other wrestler, Julian, he's a heavyweight wrestler. He was in the back seat of my car sleeping. He was a big boy. He had to cut weight to be heavyweight. So he was like 270, 275 or 280. He was pretty big. He was in the back of my car sleeping. He didn't have his seatbelt on. So when the wreck happened, he flew up front and suffered a broken hip and had a pin put into his hip. But he healed fully after surgery. He actually moved to St. Louis and played semi-pro football for like 5 years or longer. So physically, he was all right. And I was driving, I didn't know how long my seatbelt. And as Penny mentioned, I got hurt the worst. I received a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, and usually died with swelling of your brain. And mine did swell real bad. At one point, my younger sister got to see me in the hospital, Jody, and she remembers my brain weighed over 25 pounds like something's wrong. So the doctors had to cut me from here to there and remove a big portion of my skull for 6 months and freeze it. For 39 days of which though I remained in a coma and put to life support. And that was definitely the toughest 5 weeks of my parents' life, not knowing if life support would keep me alive or not. Once my mom and dad said they didn't know whether to buy me balloons for a wake-up party or to go get a casket. But they prayed and prayed. God us answer their prayers. I woke 39 days later. Well, when I come out of the coma at first, I didn't even know my name. I didn't even know my parents' names, my 5 brothers and sisters. But as time went on, I slowly recalled some of my past with different names. My times of failure were outweighed by times of surprise myself. So eventually, after they got me hooked off the ventilator machine, the tubes, and the air cast in my legs, you can't see it, I have plastic air cast in my legs, they're really uncomfortable, sweating, or when they blow me down at night. And once they got me off of those, they got me out of the diaper I was in. I'm glad my mom covered it up. I wasn't glad when my mom told me she let everybody in my family change my diaper. I'm like, really, Mom? But I'm glad she covered up. But when they got me off of that, they trusted me to set up in my own room and push a call button for help. I was moved from ICU to Russell Patient Center. And Russell Rehab was my new home. For the next 8 or 9 months, I lived there every day and went to therapy every day, such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, learning skills, and speech. And after 9 months of that, I was ready to go back home, but I still needed a portion of my skull. So at this point, the surgeons planned on reinserting the bone flap back into my head. But about 2 months before they could do this, I still had to go back to Rockbridge High School in a wheelchair, wearing a bicycle. And that's going on over 20 years ago, but still every day and for the rest of my life, when I wake up and look at the mirror, and I brush my teeth and brush my hair, I have to ask myself, so, you would have took 3 seconds and put your seatbelt on. So, if you would have been on a curvy road that late at night, so, if you wouldn't have had 2 friends in the car with you probably distracting you, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe, but maybe not, because crashes still really happen. But you pull yourself up, use a cane, a wheelchair, a walker. I've used all of them, count your blessings and move forward. So that's like over 20 years of my life, my wrestling tendons. It did a lot more sense in me. But what happened to my body physically was, since I damaged the right side of my brain, it partially paralyzed the left side of my body. I'm sure you guys have heard people say, like, left-handed people on the right leg, vice versa, side of controls. And I damaged this side, so like from where that scar is, I can draw an invisible line. And like I can't, if I do this, I can feel my thumb, but I can't feel my fingers. I'm hypersensitive, so I can feel pain, but I can't feel a simple little touch. And it's real detailed, like I can't feel that, but like I also can't feel the side of my mouth where I barely touch it. And me and Penny travel a lot, and she lets me pick the steakhouses we eat in. My favorite hobby. Especially this day, like cold. But she lets me pick the place we eat. But she knows I can't feel the side of my mouth. So if I get food here, she's like, Chad. Because it's kind of embarrassing if I'm waving with a hot waitress and I have lettuce on my mouth. I got barbecue sauce on my forehead last week, and I don't know how they got there. I even get carried away with barbecue ribs too. But going back to high school and stuff was tough. And I remember I would ask my therapist about 4, 5, 6 times a day in an hour session. I'd bug her and bug her. I was like, when are you going to teach me to tie my shoe with one hand? Because I'm only one in high school, my mom's got to tie my shoe with one hand. So you guys don't want your mom from school to tie a pair of shoes. Especially if she drove a car. My mom drove. It was a rusty little beat up car. My mom was a nurse. I was like, but I was like, no, I'm not going back to school until I learn to tie my shoe. I got to where I could tie my shoe, but I couldn't get it that tight. And I remember my therapist getting a little frustrated with me. I was getting more frustrated. Finally, my therapist was like, Chad, don't worry about it. You can just buy Velcro shoes. I was like, there's no way. I'm going back to high school where Walmart Velcro shoes better than that. I like, they're okay if my 4-year-old brother, my 8-year-old grandpa, but no, I'm not going to be in gym class going, hold on, coach. Like, no, I'm going to tie my shoe like everyone else. And I got to where I could tie my shoe, but I couldn't get that tight. So like 2 months later, my little brother Travis, my little brother Travis, he had a bicycle wreck. He was flying, busting movies. Like my mom panicked. She's like, we're going to the ER. His neck hurt. And I was like, okay, I got some friends there. I live there for a minute. I'll go to the ER. So we went to the ER, and I was sitting in the waiting room, and I sat next to a guy that had his arm cut off, and his shoes tied. And I talked to him, so I was like, did you tie your shoes? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, can you show me how you get it tight? Because I can tie it. But every time I stand up, it comes undone. So after like the second time, like, Mom, tie my shoe. I won't watch. Hurry. So then I did stuff for me. And he was like, yeah, sure, I can tie it tight. So he showed me how to get it tight. So now without looking, I can tie my shoe with one hand. I can double knot it too, but I only do that if I'm chasing a penny down hill. She's fast. Gravity likes her, it hurts me. So if I fall from the floor. But guess we have time. Y'all see how my shoe double. I can double knot it too, but I'm do that. She's trying to do it with me. And it's not easy to find a penny when you're shopping because she's about the height of the clothes, so I got to lay on the ground and mix it. And I can't have her pay me. I've been paying for out of Walmart, and she's like, don't ever do that again. Well, this is big school, so I'm going to do it twice. I'm going to shoot right here, and then I'm going to go there. Maybe. And I need to do this. Yeah. And I worked in my time, so for 5 years. I was big into the slow. That was nice. But I do miss a little thing about having one hand. I got this clapping together. I remember one time I was with my mom at church and I was clapping like this. And she smiled at me and I told Mom I could clap like this. So I did the rest of the service. 2 hours. So I guess in closing, guys, what I want you guys to remember is there's a million ways to die in this world. But don't die because you didn't take 3 seconds. And don't end up paralyzed, because you only get one brain, one spinal cord, your whole life. Damage you. There's no doctor in the world. You can win the Powerball lottery. You got billions. You're never going to walk again. You're paralyzed. So you only get one chance. Make sure you make the right choices. When it comes to driving, when it comes to life, don't let anything slow you down. You honestly can do whatever you want, be whatever you want, as long as you work for it, study hard, make the right choices. Definitely when you're in a car, whether you're going down to check the mail, or you're going into town, or you're going on the highway, make sure you buckle up and buckle up your loved ones every time you're in the car. Because the hardest day of my life wasn't when I come out of a coma and the doctor told me I'd never be able to walk again. I lived in a nursing home the rest of my life. That wasn't the hardest day. The hardest day of my life was looking my family in the eyes. My brothers and sisters, when they knew I would achieve the dreams I'd set for myself. When it comes to wrestling and anything physical like that. So be safe and look like that. Thank you all very much.
Got married last weekend, so she's on her honeymoon this week, or I would have invited her to come. She's been a phenomenal, beautiful young lady. This young lady that wrecked this vehicle, the sophomore in high school, she had her license for 2 weeks, drove to school one morning, her mom let her drive her vehicle. She got to the school, in the school parking lot, met up with a couple of her friends. They decided to skip school that day and left in this vehicle. The day this crash happened, it was raining hard. Kaylee said the last thing I remember saying, she told told her passengers, I don't like this. This is making me nervous because it was raining so hard. And the passenger in the front seat said, well, pull over. I'll drive. I've had my license longer than you. She told me, said, no way. Anybody wrecks this vehicle, it better be me or my mom will kill me. She goes, oh my God, I was just joking. She hydroplaned right after she said that, doing 35 miles an hour. When I met Kaylee, she was going through her rehab. And when she was telling me about her crash, I asked her, I said, were any of you seatbelted? She put her head down, she was crying the whole time she's talking to me. She said, no. She goes, I don't get it. I always wore my seatbelt, and that day I didn't. Kaylee was thrown through the front windshield. She broke her neck, and she is a quadriplegic. The young man that was sitting right here was also ejected, and he was killed instantly, 35 miles an hour. She deals with the fact that she hurt herself. She hates her injury, as do I. But the one thing that's hardest for her to wake up and face every day is the fact that she killed one of her best friends. He wasn't belted either. There's not a day that goes by she doesn't beat herself up over that. That young man's father went to see her in the hospital more than once. First time he came in, she said, I'm laying in that bed and I just looked at him and started bawling. She said, I said 2 words. They're the hardest words I ever had to get out and struggle with in my life. Do you know what the 2 words she said that was the toughest thing she's ever had to say in her life? I'm sorry. Took the only child, the only son of this family. There's no more birthdays. There'll be no weddings, no grandkids. And she's responsible for that. In her mind, she'll live with it every day. This message and today is about choices, guys. I started this out by saying, you know what, right from wrong. It's up to you to make the right choice in your life. Thank you so much.